Stay tuned right here for more classics on this channel here, Hanson Archives. But to fund this station, I'm offering, if you send us $25, we'll send you a signed copy of Bohemia Grove Cult of Conspiracy. It was forwarded by Tex Mars that just recently passed away. Also, Alex Jones has a chapter in here. And you know that's good. There's us in our younger days. But on the address that you see, send us $25 and we will send you a signed copy, or give us a call at 830-672-3089 and you can put it on a credit card. We'll send it right out. But that's what we need to help fund this channel, folks. So help us get all the classics uploaded to YouTube. We got hundreds and hundreds of old Alex Jones and Jeff Davis and a bunch of other patriots that we need to upload.
And we're
about 25-year-old tape.
the man that we've mentioned some of your materials. We've also run your video Death and Taxes on our program, and on his television program. And it's Jack McLamb, who is a former retired police officer.
Retired police officer, yes.
And you've one of your most, I think probably the book that's got the most exposure, Jack, is Operation Vampire Killer 2000, and it's the organization name is Police Against the New World Order. Jack, if you would just give us a little brief story, basically about how you got into this and how you found out, what was going on. Because we were all dumb at one time. We've all
That's
had to
right.
come into this.
That's right. Yeah, we've all had our moment, and it's interesting to listen and ask each person, how did you find out about what was going on? Well, my day came in 1978. I was giving a talk to a senior citizens group in Sun City, Arizona, right outside of Phoenix. Yeah, there was an 85, 90-year-old man sitting in the back of the room who looked like he was sleeping. You know, very frail, very, very old gentleman, and I didn't think anything of it. And I was speaking to this group of senior citizens, and when I stopped speaking, about an hour later, I was speaking on crime prevention. They were having trouble with muggings and things as they went around their neighborhood there in the senior citizen area. When I asked for questions and answers, his little bony arm was the first one to go up, and it kind of surprised me because it looked like he was kind of sleeping through the whole thing. And so I asked him what he wanted to ask, and he asked me a few questions, a series of about 4 or 5 questions, and with those 4 or 5 questions, that man turned me on my ear, because what he showed me within that very short time is that this old soldier that was in the military during the Vietnam War, that took an oath to defend this country and the Constitution and the people, and took it again when I was a police officer, that I was a violator of my oath. And I was shocked over this. I didn't believe it first anyway. It took me about 30 days to finally become convinced that he was right, because I knew that I would never violate my oath that I took. But what he showed me was I didn't even know what was in my oath, because we went through the government school system that doesn't teach you any longer about what your rights are and so forth. But I learned from that older gentleman that I indeed was a violator of my oath as a matter of policy and procedure on my department, and all officers are. And when I learned that, I had a decision to make, and I had to decide either I would continue to violate my oath or I would stop it and say no to any more what turned out to be immoral activity, orders, or unlawful orders that I was given. And when I made that decision, Jeff, at the time, before I made the decision, I was the most highly decorated officer in the history of Phoenix, Arizona. Still am today. But then I became the most fired officer in the history of Phoenix, Arizona after I made that commitment, that I would refuse to do things any longer that I considered as a Christian man immoral or a violation of my oath. But it took study before I understood what my oath was. Because, of course, today, the Constitution is treated as old and antiquated and outdated, and they don't teach you that anymore. So it's interesting that the citizens don't know what their rights are. we don't know what their rights are, so it's so easy to give us orders that violate their rights because nobody knows.
Right.
See?
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's how I woke up, and I began to become so depressed as a lawman who was at the top of my career, and then at the very bottom of my career when I started refusing orders that were unlawful many times. And I became the worst officer on the department then. And within the next couple of years, they fired me twice for, number one, refusing certain orders, and then number two, for writing a publication about the Constitution for lawmen and for soldiers. When I started writing that publication, many police officers began to read it in Arizona and other states, and began to turn, just like I did, back to service of the people, and no longer service and protection of the system from the people. And when that happened, I got in all kinds of trouble, as they fired me for publishing, actually writing this newsletter. And so, but luckily, a very liberal civil service board put me back to work both times I was fired, because they knew that I had a First Amendment right under the Constitution. The liberals know about the First Amendment because they use it against us all the time, against our nation, to destroy it. But in this particular case, they came to my defense as a conservative. Here, all the liberals came to my defense and put me back to work with full back pay, saying that we don't agree with what he writes about the Constitution, but we agree that he should be able to write it. So that's how I got started.
Where did you first, I mean, this Operation Vampire Killer 2000, you know, this is pretty hardcore stuff.
Hardcore.
Yeah, you know, and that's what I like on this, on the Jeff Davis program. I mean,
Yeah.
we're fans of Warren Cornicky and these kind of
Good buddy.
These kind of people.
Yeah.
But so, how did you actually get into the knowledge and the understanding that this? I mean, you're talking about some symptoms. You're talking about violation of rights. But when you get into the bigger scheme of things, international bankers and all of this, you're really hitting the slave masters that rule this planet, so to speak. When did you start delving into what's really the enemy of what we're really up against?
It's a process that I think, Jeff, you went through, and everyone in this room, including myself, goes through once you find out something's wrong, and most of us are inquisitive enough to start studying. And I was lucky to be surrounded with people, all in the private sector, none in the government, that shared information with me as fast as I could take it in, as fast as I could absorb it. And I learned about exactly who controls everything and what the plan is. But it was over 17 years that I learned that. So I've been at it quite some time, not as long as many people that've been at it 40, 50 years, but I've been at it about 17, almost 18 years now. And so this is just some of what I learned about the progression of this, actually not a new world order, but very old system of totalitarianism, where a man or a group, an oligarchy in this case, decides that they have a right to rule over everybody else on the face of the earth. So it was just through a progression of study that I learned these things, just like you and everybody else.
How successful have you been? Now, I've actually become aware, about like 3 or 4 years back, and I know of people, at least in Central Texas, that actually are handing these things out to the local APD in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
You know, so I imagine that this is probably going on a national basis. Of course, this is a world problem.
That's right.
So I would hope that, any military or something of other nations, personnel would be. But how successful, Jack, have you been with actually getting this information out there?
Our biggest problem, Jeff, has been convincing the public that they're a part of our team. See, as police and soldiers, we work for them. That's not very popular to say nowadays, because the government tells you that's not the case. You're supposed to work for us, But indeed, when we can convince the American people that we are police officers and soldiers that want to serve them once again, but that in order to do this, we need them to join us in helping us reach our police and soldiers, because we've got 1 million copies of this out in this country and other nations to police and soldiers that are now responding to us saying, hey, we didn't know these things were going on, give us more information. But the initial contact has to come from the private sector. Until we get the law enforcement and military involved, And now we do, and they're handing it out in their military units, and they're handing it out in their police department. But it's taken a team effort on the part of good Americans, both in uniform and outside of uniform, to get these things in the hands of millions of police officers and soldiers now in this land and in other lands. I've been on tour now in Australia and New Zealand, speaking to the police and soldiers there, and it's very interesting to see police, soldiers in these various countries. I may be going to Britain soon. Officers have asked me to come up there and teach them about what they can do now to stop this new world order in their land. You see, so, and everywhere I go, it's fascinating to, and really sad to see these big Aussie soldiers come up to you. I mean, big dudes. And they'll have tears stringing down their cheeks after I speak.
I love my Hanson archives.
And they'll give me a big bear hug and lift me up off the ground almost. And they say, McLamb, you tell those Yanks, don't let America's lamp of liberty go out, because we're all finished if you do. And they know that. They know this is the bastion of freedom. And what a heavy responsibility that is for all these other nations to look at us as, if we fall, they're gone, because they know they don't have the freedoms we even have now. We've got less freedoms now by a long shot than what we used to, but still we're further ahead, and they know it than they are, you see. So they are just so desperate to be sure America doesn't fall, because they've always, all these nations have always looked at us at being the ones that they would want to emulate, and so they could have one day perhaps the same freedoms we do. So we're really pleased to see the awakening, Jeff. And it's because of people like you, brother, that have gone to, and your staff have gone out and taken it upon yourselves to get the message out. And that's all we are doing in law enforcement too, doing everything we can do to get the message out as quick as we can. So
I know that you often tour around with Bo, who I was wanting to get an interview with, but he's a pretty busy man. He's surrounded
he's got a lot of extra difficulties now because of his trial coming up. So his time is really tight, really tight. He's in and out. We were supposed to go to dinner together last night, and he couldn't do it, and that's unusual. But he's so busy right now. We just we're not even having any time to talk to each other.
So you definitely, Jack, do see in a way. I mean,
yeah.
So this thing is not over with, regardless of what the other side.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. And the critical thing where they don't understand, and most Americans and other people in other land do understand, is that they seem to be in power in all of our governments throughout the world, and I mean the globalists.
Yeah,
you can call them by any name you want to. Internationalists, globalists, that's the terms we use, because they can be a mass of different organizations like the Masons and everybody, or political parties, but just we call them internationalists or globalists. But they think they're in control, and they're not. God's in control. See, and that's the element they leave out. Now they think that it's all over for us, and they're very bold today. They think it's all over, but now we're beginning to see them fear a little bit and start to shake, because they realize we've got the tender parts, you might say, the Achilles heel of their whole apparatus is their enforcers. If their soldiers and police join the people again, they're lost.
Yeah, they're in trouble.
Because they can't send the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker to take your guns.
Yeah.
It's got to be those people in these uniforms. And we have realized something they didn't, that the people in these uniforms, most of us were raised with a belief in God, and that we answered to a higher calling than the local politician, and so it's easy for us to re-educate our brothers and sisters if we can get to them, and it's working. Well, it's scaring the tar out of the globalists, because we're doing such a fine job with every citizen helping, taking our literature written by police, for police, written for soldiers, by soldiers, for soldiers, and handing it out, and we're their peers, so they listen to us, you see. And it's moving so rapidly that the globalists are really starting to shake, and we can see it as they publish articles about us now in the top military publications saying that stay away from Jack McLamb or Police Against the New World Order or Aid and Abet, because it's seditious publications, you see. And in the police departments are touring the whole United States now, talking about us, saying these are terrorists, these are anti-government people, stay away from them, and you folks too, we're all in the same basket. but they hate what we're doing to reach the minds and the hearts of our brothers and sisters in uniform that we know are good people. We're just brainwashed.
Yeah,
that's all.
right.
And it's working, so it's got them on the run. They feel now that they've got to cause some kind of terrorist activity again that will bring the people to their knees, frighten us so bad that we will beg them for martial law. And we think that's going to be their tactic. We think we can expect more explosions.
Yeah.
And they're hoping to cut us off at the pass. Anybody that loves the Lord or mentions the Constitution are terrorists by blowing up a few more things, causing the racial wars that they're working on very hard right now, and to get the racial wars going. And they hope the majority of the American people, this will scare so bad that we will beg the government for martial law, rescind our Constitution, and just make us safe. So that's going to be their plan. So whoever we get on our side in the months ahead is all we're going to have on our side, because these frightening things we believe is going to occur as they try to stop us from being any more successful than we are. So we need to work hard during the months we have. And that's why I appreciate you, Jeff, and what you're doing, and all of the people here to make this thing work as fast as we can before they do their little tricks. And I believe it may be successful. The American people may be so scared, the majority of them, that they will acquiesce to totalitarianism just to be safe from who they think are the terrorists out there, when it's really the terrorists in our own government.
Right. These guys are some real connivers.
Oh, they're horrible.
Just a quick. Do you believe that Gordon Call was murdered? I mean, I don't want to just quickly. I saw that video in your final statement was the federal agents murdered.
Then you know, because we've proven that probably Jim Hall, the U.S. Marshal Jim Hall, it looks like, walked up behind him. And this is the way we think it's happened. It's alleged, you might say. But we do know this happened. One of those agents, a federal agent, came up behind Gordon as he was watching television, put probably a .38, it looks like by the hole, to the back of his head, right over his left ear, shot him from the back to the front of the head, and he died on the floor. Our dear Sheriff Gene Matthews came in right behind that, saw what they had done, and raised Cain, because Sheriff Gene Matthews was a good sheriff in Lawrence County. And we suspect, because of what came out over the radio, the police radios right after that, that he said no to the cover-up. And he ended up with at least 2 bullet holes in him with 2 different guns, and probably a third. We haven't exhumed his body yet. But that's what has happened in that home. And so both of these people were executed by federal U.S. Marshals and FBI agents. And then they torched the house and tried to torch Gordon Call's body. They poured accelerants on his body, torched the body. We've already exhumed his body and did a second autopsy on it. I took it personally to Dr. Thomas Noguchi in Los Angeles, pathologist of the stars, that did the autopsy on John Belushi and Elvis Presley, and a very honest pathologist that was fired because of his honesty from Los Angeles County coroner. They fired him because he kept telling the truth on everything. So they got him out of there, and that's who we used, and he's willing to take the stand now and testify to what they did to Gordon Call's body. So it's going to be exciting if we can get into court. But all the levels of government are refusing to let us get to the grand jury. You see, so they're fighting hard to be sure this execution doesn't come out, because so many people are involved in the cover-up, including President Bill Clinton.
Yeah. I noticed that video. Well, Jack McLamb, I want to give you a couple moments or so to make a final statement. If you have a number or something you'd like to mention for the viewers of our Jeff Davis show, I do appreciate you.
Thank you, Jeff.
coming on the program.
Likewise, brother. Appreciate you very much.
And if you would, if you got a closing statement or something.
Yes, I just want to tell the American people that they should truly be of good cheer. There's a lot of negative things they see every day happening around them, but what they're not being told by the controlled media, but they are by you, people like you, that a lot of good things are happening. You know, we're succeeding at this thing. And the more people that will help us now to succeed, and we suggest that we keep reaching our police and soldiers in your community as fast as we can, because your safety is directly related to how many of our police and soldiers in your community we get back on the side of the people. And it's working. We got a plan that's working. We just need to work the plan. And so pray every day, pray a number of times a day that God continues to bless us with success in these educational endeavors. And I say this, Jeff, because we never again want to see in this country where brother against brother is spilling the blood of our fellow Americans on the streets of America. And we must pray that God gives us that victory, that we can turn this around non-violently, and we do not have to see, once again, a civil type war in this country. So I think we ask, of course, that it be God's will, and then we go and remember that duty is ours and consequences is God's. In other words, we just do what we should be doing and let God sort it out. We know we're doing the right thing. God bless you, brother.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Jack McLamb, Operation Vampire Killer, folks.
On Monday, on 6 o'clock. Come on, anybody want to come up here? All right, that's it. All right, who wants to lead it? Let Gene go. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Here's
All right.
Yell it out.
God bless the Republic